KaiJune.
Well, we're on day 3 of KaiJune. Today we're continuing Gamera, and this time I'm going to take on the sequel, which is Gamera vs. Barugon. And that is a direct continuation of the first Gamera, actually, only a year later in 1965. And in this movie, Gamera comes back from space. You remember in the last one he was sent off in a giant rocket ship headed to Mars. But this time he's actually coming back. He broke out of the rocket ship. He comes back, destroys a dam, and then sort of like hides out around the world, not really doing anything to Japan for the time being. But what ends up happening is a group of guys who are really interested in getting rich quickly instead of actually working for a living. Actually, one of the main characters, Kaisuke, actually says that he'd rather get rich quick than just work as a pilot. So what he plans on doing is setting out to New Guinea, where a friend has told him that he can find a giant opal in a cave. And this opal will give them tons of money. Apparently it's so big that they can sell it off and split 3 ways, still be rich. So they set off to New Guinea, and they end up meeting a tribe of people that are worshippers of this random stone that they have that kind of tells of the cave that they're visiting. It's called the Valley of Rainbows, and one of the women there, Karen, who just happens to speak Japanese as well, warns them not to go to the Valley of Rainbows. It's a bad place, she says. You don't want to go. Even if there is some giant opal that'll get you rich, it's not worth it. Well, the guys, especially a guy named Onodero, he sets off. He doesn't care. He's not worried about it. There's scorpions and bats, and he's not terrified of those either, so they all set off to find this opal in the cave. It turns out that they do find the opal. Unfortunately, a scorpion gets one of the guys. His name's Kawajira. A scorpion gets him. He's dead in about a minute and a half. He kind of loses his vision and then goes into a sort of shock where he dies. And this is known to Onodera, and he doesn't really care. It actually makes it better for him because he's trying to take all of the money. He doesn't really care that he has to kill off his partners in the process. And actually, once Kawajira is dead, he sets some bombs, blows up the cave, leaving Kaisuke to sort of fend for himself. And Onodera thinks he's dead, so Onodera thinks he's got the opal to himself. Well, Kaisuke is not dead. Unfortunately, Karen saves him from the cave, even though we don't really get to see how. There's no explanation for it. But she actually explains to him what the opal is. It's not a opal per se. It's actually a giant egg that houses Barugon, who is a monster that this tribe that Karen has been living with worships. Well, after Kaisuke is found, they head back to Japan to find this opal because they want to make sure that nothing bad happens with it. Obviously, Karen knows that Barugon could hatch from it and cause a lot of havoc because he is a giant lizard thing. But in the process, Onodera, and I have to keep looking at my notes here because I don't know, for some reason I can't remember his name. Onodera goes back to Japan as well. He's going to try to sell this opal, but unfortunately, before he can do that, he accidentally leaves on a infrared lamp, which has been treating his athlete's foot that he got from the jungle, and Barugon hatches from its egg really early, and it becomes so irradiated that it morphs into a giant Barugon. And this Barugon starts to wreak havoc on Japan. It all kind of works out the way that Gamera did in the beginning, but it takes a while for Barugon to actually become a part of the movie. Gamera vs. Barugon takes a long time to really set up its plot, which is actually a good thing because we get to spend a lot of time with Kaisuke and Onodera, and we get to see how crappy Onodera is throughout. It does leave him a kind of stereotypical character, almost like a mustache twirler. He's like, hee, how can I get rich quick type guy, and he does become that. He doesn't really change throughout. I mean, he's basically that type of person throughout the entire movie. Even at the end, as Barugon is continuing to destroy buildings, Onodera is thinking about how he can get rich next, which is there's a big giant diamond that Karen happens to have from her tribe, which apparently Barugon is normally attracted to. So he's thinking about stealing that, even as Barugon is wrecking all of Japan. And his character doesn't really change that much throughout. But we do get to see a lot of Keisuke and Karen, and that's a good thing. Their characters are probably one of the best in Gamera vs. Barugon, and they do have a romance that sort of buds at the end of the film, and it actually works throughout because the film spends so much time at the beginning really setting up Keisuke's character. He's not really a bad guy, he just makes some bad mistakes, and they really touch on that towards the end of the film. The fight scenes are pretty good. One of the things that's surprising about Gamera vs. Barugon is that it really doesn't have much Gamera. Gamera is kind of put out of commission quickly because Barugon is really overpowered. Not only is he giant, he also has this weird tongue thing that pops out of his mouth, and it's actually kind of suggestive. I'm kind of left wondering, although I don't really want to venture out into the internet territory, but I'm left wondering if there is some sort of Gamera Barugon porn online, and it wouldn't surprise me. But anyway, not wanting to think about that anymore. Barugon also has, besides his tongue that can freeze enemies, he also can shoot rainbows from him. He's not shitting rainbows, but he's shooting them out somehow, and that's like one of his main powers. So it's to shoot rainbows. And he's kind of overpowered. He really puts Gamera out of commission right away, freezes him so that he can't move. He's kind of in a hibernation, if you will. And so Barugon is left to just wreak havoc, do whatever he wants. But he does have certain weaknesses that we do find out. One, he's really attracted to like diamonds and glitter, so they try to use that against him. And he's also has a weakness for water, so anytime he's either got rain on him or he's pushed into water, if it's raining, he's kind of just sleeping it off. Basically, he can't do anything. But if he's thrown into water for no reason really that's explained to us, he just dissolves into purple blood. So the main conceit is getting Barugon into the water somehow. First, it's to try to lure him with the diamond. When that doesn't work, they do try a giant mirror, a reflecting bowl that could reflect his rainbows back at him. Unfortunately, it only does some damage to him, purple blood leaking out of him, which is actually pretty cool because this one is in color, whereas Gamera was not in color. You can definitely see a difference here with the color. But anyway, it doesn't work out very well, so the last thing they're left with is to hope Gamera can fight him off at the end. Fortunately, Gamera does. He throws him into the water. Barugon sinks in. He's left with like a purple spouting water gusher because of his nature of dissolving in water. And Gamera kind of just flies off, not really interested in destroying anything this time, but actually being a sort of savior for the people, which we did see a little bit in the first Gamera. He saves Toshio in that film, but in this one he's really not that interested in destroying anything except for in the beginning of the film. So he's a better monster in this one, and I think all of Japan thanks him for it because he gets rid of Barugon. One of the big things that really gets to me in all these monster films, though, is that there is a sort of emotional attachment to each of these monsters, even though they are destroying cities and kind of killing people in the process, though that's kind of cut out of these films. You really only see the destruction and not the actual tragedy that follows. But there is an attachment to them, and whether it's meant there to be or not, it still kind of feels a little sad when you see Barugon sinking into the water, kind of just gushing purple blood all over the place. You kind of hate to see him go, even though you know that it's for the best for the people of Japan. So I think that's a triumph in and of itself for these kaiju films, and you'll definitely see it a lot in some of the ones where Godzilla or Gamera are fighting their enemies. And I noticed it in Godzilla vs. Mothra as well, where you kind of feel bad for Godzilla and Mothra and Badra, even though they are sort of monsters that are destroying the world. With that said, though, we do get a lot of destruction in this one. A lot of it, though, is actually frozen houses and buildings instead of actually crushed by Barugon. Barugon's actually kind of a pretty swift mover. He doesn't really crush that much. He's actually got a pretty swanky move. He's got a tail that does sometimes crush things, but other than that, he's pretty good at staying away from buildings when he doesn't have to knock them over. So let's take a look at the Kaiju Carnage. Really quickly outlining this because I've already gone on too long. We've got 14 buildings that have been demolished or frozen. I counted both of those. We have 13 tanks, 3 jets, 10 rockets, which are actually destroyed by Barugon's rainbow, 1 dam, and we have 2 ships. One is a rocket ship that I included, which is Gamera's rocket ship that's destroyed. And the last one is a nice suit is destroyed after Barugon's egg melts through it because of the infrared lamp. With that, I think I'm going to close out Gamera vs. Barugon. I enjoyed this one more than Gamera, the first one. I think it definitely has a lot more going for it in terms of plot. It is about 20 minutes longer than the first one, so it does give it a little bit more time to the plot to develop. And I think that's a really good thing for this film, because a lot of times, especially in the ones where the monsters are fighting other monsters, they kind of skip out on plot and characterization just to get to the battles. But in this one, they really don't, and you do get a sense of the protagonists and their characterization and development throughout the film, so that's really nice. And you do get to see in Gamera vs. Barugon, Gamera and Barugon fighting like cats. For about 5 minutes, they're kind of growling at each other, both with their they both have really defined growls, and so Barugon actually has got a really annoying sort of high-pitched one, so they stand there for about 5 minutes. If you've ever seen a cat fight, you know that that's the same thing they do. They're really tensed up. Well, that's Barugon and Gamera in this film. Other than that, though, I'm going to end this out. Make sure that you're entering the email subscription newsletter list giveaway. It's a really long title, but we've got that going on. You just put your email and your name into the MailChimp newsletter sign up, and you are signed up to win the giveaway for the Gamera Ultimate Collection Volumes 1 and 2, which that's what Gamera vs. Barugon is from. This is the Volume 1 collection right now, and I'll be giving that away at the end of KaiJune. So stay tuned, enter that, and I hope that you win, all of you, but only one of you can. Thanks a lot for watching.